So what if I told you this Acura Integra standing behind me actually has a rebuilt title? Now, title status is going to be a huge indicator when you're going out and buying cars in general, off the used marketplace especially. And it's something that comes into play quite often, and I feel like a lot of people don't have a clear understanding sometimes of what that is. So I'm hoping today to kind of give you some more information about this. So typically what happens with a car and how it gets to the point of being a rebuilt vehicle is that at one point in time, it either got in an accident or it got totaled out by the insurance. Maybe even something related to theft could have led to it being deemed a total loss. So when it comes to saying something is totaled, typically what it means is that the cost of the repair to make it drivable again outweighed the market value of the car in the first place. Or in some cases, it may be a little more obvious. But in this case, I want to show you guys that buying a rebuilt title car doesn't necessarily mean that it's a complete disaster. And also on the same side of the coin, a clean title car could also be a potential risk. Now, you may be wondering, okay, so if a clean title car doesn't have any accidents, why would it be considered a little sketchy? And it's actually because clean title cars have not had any accidents reported. And that's the key word in all of this. So you have to be still very careful about going about looking at clean title cars, because if it hasn't been reported, it still has a clean title status. So that happens sometimes where maybe somebody backed into a pole and they weren't paying attention, or they had some really small fender bender around the block and they decided not to go through the insurance. But it is more likely that you will find stuff like this on the used car marketplace. So people will go out of their own way to do the repair, or they hire somebody to do some body work on it, and then they go out and they sell it down the road, and then you start to realize what actually happened here. But before I show you cars that look like they've been in a demolition derby, I wanted to talk about something like this that may actually be a rebuilt title now. The first generation Integras will always hold a soft spot in my heart because I actually had a red one of these a long time ago. It burned oil, but it was a really fantastic car. The tint on it was terrible, the paint was peeling, but it was an old Honda, and it really just didn't want to quit. So when I saw this one, I immediately was very keen to take a look at it, but you have to remember that this is such an old car, and on the market value that they usually go off of, I believe is usually something like the Kelley Blue Book. A vehicle like this, in that, is probably worth like, what, $1,500 on the KBB? But in the used marketplace, it's gonna be very different, where something like this to an enthusiast could be worth anywhere from $4 to $5 grand. Let's say, for example, if somebody really, really wanted a super clean one, but in this case, if for whatever reason, if it has some sort of body damage on it or whatever, this can be deemed a total loss. And then, you know, you're stuck with it and you're like, okay, well, now what? What am I supposed to do with this thing? The only thing that takes the hit on the value of the car really is the rebuilt title status. And that's something that is very clear cut, especially when you start getting into the higher level vehicles, you know, like a car that could be worth $50,000. If it has a rebuilt title, you probably knock another 10K off of it just because of that. And it makes people very sketched out and weirded out by the whole situation, makes people uncomfortable knowing, oh man, this thing's been in an accident at one point in time. So if you are like a car dealership and you're selling all these rebuilt title cars, they're gonna think that you're doing something really shady here. But the rebuilt title status shouldn't hold you back from buying something in the first place. It's just you have to calculate how much it is gonna knock off the price so that you could get it for a really good deal. Now, stuff like this BMW behind me, where it's pretty obvious that it's been taken to a body shop to get the appraisal, so it's been totaled out by the insurance, it gives you a really clear-cut idea of what is needed to actually put this back together. So it's just an accumulation of panels and stuff like that. And when I look at this, per se, I think that this would actually be a pretty good buy because I don't see any structural or frame damage, and it looks like it hasn't been ran straight into a concrete wall. And that's kind of a lot of the accidents that you actually do see in day-to-day life. It's just these fender benders, low-speed collisions, but it's enough to total it out because especially here in America, bodywork is very expensive. I mean, if you're looking for a profession to get into, this is probably gonna be the... From somebody that's looking at this right now, if I was gonna be a buyer, I would actually be interested in something like this, because you could put it back together, you could take it through the VIN inspection, and you can have a nice looking and running car. But to everybody else that doesn't know the whole story behind this, it's just going to be a huge question mark. So if you're in the situation where you're going to be a buyer buying an auction car like this, it's probably best to have the before and after. And even when you take it through the VIN inspection too, the people at State Patrol, they know exactly what the vehicle looked like before. You know, is it actually still good even though it went through all that headache and hardship and all these repairs and stuff? I mean, that's really up to you. So there's levels to it for sure. But I do think that it's a bit silly sometimes when something like this is considered a rebuilt title. You know, it is a salvage car and it is salvageable. It just kind of opens your eyes up to the possibility of other things happening here. And then you also have people being able to take clean title stuff and kind of washing away the weird stuff that's happening there. Some people don't like that because if it was enough to like tweak the frame, for example, some of the panels may not line up, so it won't be super duper perfect. If you want like your dream build car and you want it to just be so fabulous like it came from the factory, then clean title is probably the way to go. You want to make sure that you do everything in your right decency to make sure that you are making the right decision. I think with the auction cars, what's nice is it's actually very clear cut what you're getting, whereas on the Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, Craigslist Marketplace, it's really just like the wild, wild west. And you're gonna have to do everything in your right mind to just have the street smarts to sniff out when something's a good deal and something's too good to be true. And for something like this, title status shouldn't be the only factor that you're thinking about, but it's also bringing into play a lot of other things that could make or break the deal for you if you want to go through with it. I just thought I'd make this real quick just for anybody that's looking to learn some more about, you know, what you should do in this situation when it comes to title status. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this. And I think I'll end the video here. But as you know, all these auction cars, most of these are going to be rebuilt, put back on the road. That's just the reality of life. And I do think it's in a good way that we're salvaging stuff, but there's definitely ones that are just like a complete disaster where I'd be very sketched out to drive something like that that is a bit beyond total. But in this case, like this one behind me, I think we're in a safe space to be so. So anyways, I appreciate you guys and I'll catch you in the next one.